Well, greetings and thanks for joining us on another episode of Lightbulb Moments. And this is episode number 147. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out past episodes. This is also a podcast. So thanks for joining us today. I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm host and curator of Lightbulb Moments. Lightbulb moment for us is a moment of sudden realization, enlightenment, or inspiration. And life really is a series of moments. The question is, can you take that moment and do something with it? Because you can't start a fire without a spark. So this forum is an opportunity to connect with myself as the curator and then other special guests, such as the one I'm going to introduce here in a little bit. At Qnity, we are here to help you go from confusing, overwhelming, and complex to a simpler path towards greater prosperity. Remember to prosper, to manage your ATM, the three currencies we have in life: attention, time, and money. And thanks for spending your precious time with us today. We love hearing from you, whether it's a topic, whether it's a guest, whether it's an insight, whether it's a light bulb moment to your own. Feel free to stay in touch by using the chat, send us an email, or communicate to us through our social channels. Our guest, who we'll get to in a little bit here, is Gary Spellman. He is from the John Paul Mitchell family, as well as the Peace, Love, and Happiness Foundation. I'm super excited to have Gary on as a guest, and we'll get to him in a little bit here. Our past guests included Chris Barron, Global Artistic Director, and also a facilitator and a coach. Great session with him. Other past guests were Tamara Fields from Accenture. Great wisdom by Tamara, a very, very talented woman that I don't know how she does what she does. She's an incredible powerhouse. Check out that episode. Jen Lyles, Executive Director of Beauty Schools Marketing Group, was a recent episode, as well as an episode with Cash Lawless, Shane Price, Liz and Jess Arundel, and then other great episodes. So check them out. Again, submit a light bulb moment of your own, whether it's in the chat or whatever. We love keeping a conversation with you. Light Bulb Moments is now proudly sponsored by Lightheart Sanders, the CPA firm, the Green Circle Salons, and Forest, all organizations we work with very actively and closely, and thanks to them for helping make this podcast possible. We talked about recent episodes. Let's talk about some upcoming dates, which obviously is the Phil, which is coming up. Oh my gosh, it's coming up, and I'm so excited about it. May 19th and 21st. It will be a theme of leap as you really look to take a leap to fill the gaps in your business. Get away from your business and fill the gaps. And so leap is the theme. And we're also pleased to announce really cutting edge education. I'm very excited about this. I've never seen this done before, where it's been a fusion of experts and academics. We have 4 professors that are from the University of Texas, from 2 different divisions of the university. Professors that are very used to working with those out in the business world, and one by one, we're having a chance to go through their content, their presentations, and I got to tell you guys, this is going to be a very, very special year. This is a education like I've never seen in the beauty industry, which is a fusion of many of the great educators that we bring on our team into the beauty industry, et cetera, but also to go outside and challenge ourselves to look at what some of the best educators in the world are doing. And so this is a very unique format with tons of takeaways. If you haven't signed up, sign up right away. One of our speakers, this is just one, is a woman by the name of Gay Gaddis, who wrote a book called Cowgirl Power: How to Kick Ass in Business and Life. And I got to spend time with her, and I'm also reading the book. Not that I'm looking for any cowgirl power, but I am looking for power. I think we're all looking for power. And power as she defines, so spoiler alert, check out the book, but even more importantly, see and meet her in person. She's a very special lady that rose amongst some very challenging circumstances to be a very, very successful woman in the Austin, Texas area, as well as nationally. Owner and operator of the largest female-owned digital agency in the country. And we're pleased to have Gay join us at the conference. We also have Lightbulb Moments, celebration of Lightbulb Moments the night before the Phil on May 19th. We're going to honor all of our guests, including Gary, who's going to join us a little bit. So this is a little bit of a different flavor than the Phil. It's the night before. It's a welcome reception. It's a black and white night. It's not formal wear, but it's black and white. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be some celebrations. There's a nonprofit donation element to this. And we're super looking forward to that too. Past golden light bulb winner, Megan Jasper. I got permission to share this wonderful photo. Megan's been a very active member of the Lightbulb Moments community, and here she is with her 2 happy dogs and her child. So we're very excited for Megan, and she'll probably be joining us back on Lightbulb Moments sometime after normalcy sets in. I'm not sure it's ever going to be normal again, actually, once you have a baby. But anyway, I did want to just take a moment and celebrate Megan and her family. Megan is a past Golden Light Bulb winner, and which reminds me is that we will be showing photos taken at last year's Phil of some iconic figures, 13 of them in total. And this week, I'm going to start to add to the portfolio of very, very important, wise givers and go-getters that really were instrumental at last year's celebration of Lightbulb Moments. So watch for that. Money 02, don't forget to check out Erin's Money 02 podcast. She's interviewing some amazing people. I'm blown away with some of her guests. And I already mentioned who's sponsoring us. So Lightbulb Moment last week, we over the last couple of weeks, we've delved into the topic is, do we need updated benchmarks? And we actually just sent a survey out asking for feedback on what many of you would consider to be the next data project that we immerse ourselves into. And it looks like we are going to immerse ourselves in the subject of getting benchmarks that are driven by data and they're current. We're sorely lacking recent benchmarks. So that was 2 episodes ago. Also a recent episode, I spent a little bit of time talking about my stay in Aspen. I'm not in Aspen. I did have a stay in Aspen. We actually had a business in Aspen. That's another story. Slip of the tongue. I meant Austin, Texas here. So spend a little bit of time in a recent episode talking about that. And that's going to be a good segue over to Gary, who I mentioned we're going to get to in a few minutes. Lightbulb moment this week, a couple of them, is yesterday I had the distinct pleasure of joining Kay Charles in San Antonio, Texas for a 40th anniversary. And did just a little bit of research before that and realized that only 5% of companies reach 30 years, So by the time you reach 40 years, it's got to be these really, really low single digits. But anyway, I did want to honor and talk about Kay Charles and what an amazing job they've done in building a company that's gone into multitude of generations. And they know how to have fun too. So shout out to Holly Thaman, Kathy Thaman, Chase Thaman, as well as Vanessa Rodriguez, who is a key GM in that company. So it was fun to attend. I also had an opportunity to meet one of our money ambassadors, which is always great. Her name's Veronica. So, it really got me thinking about longevity, and we sort of take these things for granted. Yes, we might do a 40th celebration like I experienced yesterday. It was amazing, but just to let that sink in a moment. And so many of us have had long careers that span multiple decades, and I want to honor that and honor the entrepreneurial spirit, the small business spirit. And by highlighting this today, it also leads me into this quote that I saw, and I love it. And in a couple of years, you won't care about how long it took. You'll just be glad you never gave up. That's really what it comes down to. Things don't always happen in a perfect rhythm and a perfect time frame. And certainly that's something we experience at Qnity, whether we create content, courses, conferences, whatever. And Sometimes it just seems like things take a lot longer than you think they're going to take. And maybe I'm the only one. Put something in the chat. Let me know if I'm the only one. Call me out. I'm totally fine with that. But, at the end of the day, the decision that I make when it comes to timing is it's got to be right. It's got to be right. It has to be of quality. And that's what you'll be remembered for. You'll be remembered for getting it right. You'll be remembered for quality. You won't be remembered necessarily on how long it took. So anyway, it's just a provocative thought for myself and maybe members of our community here, to just reminder that great things take time. And I'm sure with Kate Charles, their first, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, we're very different than the ones after that. But at the end of the day, persistence, hard work, grit are things that are going to get you to where you want to be. So just a brief share in terms of my light bulb moment for the week. And it's a good segue to bring in Gary up to the mic and the camera. And I'm going to do just a quick read of the bio, just because I wouldn't be able to do justice for it otherwise. So, Gary Spellman has spent over 25 years in the beauty industry. He's been in multiple sales roles with field, sales management, training. He's been a distributor, manufacturer, and many, many more. He goes outside the beauty industry and is very serious about giving back. The annual Peace, Love, and Happiness Ride that he founded with his longtime friend, John Paul DeJoria, has raised over $1 million for the 100 Club of Central Texas, which benefits orphans and widows of fallen officers. So among these other charitable ventures, he helps protect the planet. He's on the board of several companies such as Eco Outlaw, Tricarbon Energy, the Backyard, and if he isn't busy saving the planet or practicing philanthropy, you can find this dynamo, that's a dynamo, racing his mountain bike competitively or shedding mountain on his snowboard. Gary, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm so good it hurts. Thanks for having me, Tom.
It's great to have you. And we had dinner last week. Normally when we do a prep session, it's usually over the phone, but we had a nice dinner last week, and you really can get to learn a lot about someone over dinner. And we had some common things, Gary, that came up, both from large families, both are early risers. We had about 4 or 5 things that was just kind of really cool to find common ground, and that's what we try to do in Lightbulb Moments, is find common ground with people. So thanks for being a guest today.
My pleasure.
I think it's fair to say you're a colorful individual. And I've done mountain bike riding. I've done my share of adventure, but you've got some audacity, man. I mean, you're up at what, 4 in the morning every day, working out every morning?
Yes, I am. 4 a.m. is the bell. That's usually yoga time. And then from there to the gym. From the gym, I walk my dachshunds at 6, and then at my desk, hopefully by 7:15.
Well, dachshunds is, it's funny you mention that, because yeah, I mean, we both have dachshunds, and I thought that was hilarious. And so some of the things that you do, they're a bit extreme, the mountain biking and that kind of stuff. How does that really translate to business success for you? Pushing yourself physically, a little bit like a Van Council. I mean, out there just, doing some things that require some grit. How does that help you in your business world?
It helps immensely, because when you think about it, riding a mountain bike for 24 hours straight, it seems undaunting. But starting a small business with a high risk of failure is even more undaunting. Because I remember, like, I listened to what you said in the beginning. I was at your Phil last year, and I got to meet and talk with a lot of my old friends, like Sam Ricardo was there, Uncle Cheese. But then I met some new people, and when you think about how the country was built and what we stand for as a population, we are, the people who go out, roll up your sleeves, and take a monstrous risk, and that is starting a small business. So to answer your question, there's a certain point at an endurance race, whether it's the 8th hour or the 16th hour that you're pedaling, that everything becomes in your brain. And if you let the voices get in there and say, you can't do it, you won't do it. And so you break it into small pieces. So typically on an endurance race, it's a 10-mile loop through the woods. So my mindset is once you come in, you clock in, you say 8th lap. Once you go through that gate, you're on your 9, which means 10 is next. So as long as your brain is going forward, it can't stop. And then, you keep an eye on who's around you. There was the closest race I've ever had. The gentleman who took second was the winner the year before, and he was only 40 minutes behind me. So he was always out there. So at 4 in the morning, and you're seeing the shapeshifters, you're riding through there with a light on your head, and you're hearing noises that aren't there. And you're like, I wonder where number 42 is. But it's once you do it and you push past that, because there's that whole rule of thumb. And as a personal trainer when I was younger, and what I came to realize is we quit at only 40% of our potential, because that's the safety mechanism in the body. It's like, oh, that kind of hurts, back off. But you're only at 40%. And if you can push through that, the next thing you know, the next 4 hours, you're feeling good again. And then by the morning, when that sun comes up and you get that, like it's 6:30 in the morning, the sun's up and you're out of the darkness, you feel amazing. And then you get really tired on the drive home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the race is over. But when you go from noon to noon and that sun comes up, it's a whole different day. And it's just like going into small business. And if just looking at what we went through from COVID to where we are now, and staff not coming back or training, or when we're in one of the hardest businesses, which is salon world, staff leaves at an alarming rate and takes business with them. It's not like if you quit selling cars, if you stop being a waiter at a restaurant, you don't take all those clients with you. And I think, you and I talked about that at dinner. We have to start getting back to more integrity in this industry, where if you came to my salon with not an inch of a book and we build you and then you take them, there has to be some kind of payback. Or there has to be some kind of integral agreement. And when we were a Paul Mitchell distributor for 20 plus years, we had that. If you left one of your best salons, if you said, I'm going to leave Tom's salon and go work for Gary, there had to be owner Tom and owner Gary had to talk about that. And I think that means the world to, all the businesses who are listening to me now. And those of you who are stylists, who are in a great salon, who have built your book, be that person. If you're, every team, somebody moves on. If you're ready to move on, you have to let the person know who built you. Hey, I'm out. I have no hard feelings, but this is what I'm thinking. And that way you can work as adults and as professionals, instead of that slap in the face that $30,000 just walked out my business in the middle of the night.
It's funny you say that, because yesterday it was what you just said just brings me to two conversations I had yesterday, two topics. Number one is this attrition, and people leaving. And we actually had someone that's part of one of our groups. We call a circle group. It's like a mastermind group. And it's a newer owner who's part of a family business, and 4 people left. And and he was really hurt by that, as we've all been hurt by that. Me as a salon owner, and the former salon owner, et cetera. And what he wanted to do is, he said he wanted to take a pause in being part of his mastermind group. And Jody Ohama, who's one of our coaches, kind of leaned in and said, well, this is probably the time when you need it the most. When you're in a state of distress or something like that happens, it's not the time to go insular. It's the time to reach out. Would you agree with that, Gary?
Oh, absolutely. It's whenever things starts to go awry, that's when you need the support the most. You need around common friends, people who've had this happen to them. You need that insight that you will get through it, because one of my favorite things is, my grandma used to say, nothing's as good or as bad as you think. You will survive the walkout. You'll come out stronger. But if you draw in and you try and do this by yourself, the voices will get you. And I think everyone who owns a business on this podcast will understand what I'm saying. Because only the owner knows exactly what the cash flow is. Only the owner knows the happiness in which their life is at. And when, the owner comes in every day, and I remember when I had a salon, you'd come in the morning and you got your Superman cape on, the big S, and you fly right in. First stylist says coffee's out. Second stylist says there's no toilet paper. By the time you get to the back of the salon, you're dragging your Superman cape. You're like, this is a long day already. So the weight and the responsibility that falls on us is tremendous. And to retreat within yourself is just, it's only going to get worse because it gets darker, because you're your worst critic. And I think when you have groups like what you're offering to these businesses, it's pretty cool. It's like, yeah, we went through this. And I think about it when we were a distributor, how many consultations or how many nights at a restaurant talking with some of the best, like you have TNT out in Michelle Savel's salon before, when it was owned by Tony and Taylor, and if they had to walk out, we would have a sit down and you're like, this is how much just left my business. But guess what? They survived for 35, 40 years, and now Michelle's running it. And if you have good business practices and you understand the value of money and the energy of money, you will be successful, because the bottom line to any business, whether it's Apple or a hair salon, is they can't duplicate what you do. It's like a Michelin star restaurant. If you go to a Michelin star restaurant, it's quiet. You go in the kitchen, you don't hear a word. You go to Carrabba's, it's like, bring me over the peas. They're screaming and it's chaos. When you have a system and a level of professionalism that performs at a high level, you will be just fine. They can't duplicate you.
You just added something else to my thought. I'm going to go to my second thing from yesterday that came up that I want to talk to you about in a moment. But you just connected a dot for me. A little bit earlier, I celebrated Kate Charles from San Antonio, and 40 years in business, multi-generation. And if you were to talk to the family, one of their toughest memories is what happened when they were away on a family vacation between Christmas and New Year's, and received notification of a major walkout over the holidays, why they were gone, why they were out of the country. And my gosh, I mean, if you're going to leave the business, have some professionalism,
Mhm.
but to your point, here they are, 40th anniversary, going strong. They got through it.
Yeah.
All right. The other thing that came up yesterday, I want your input on this. And, this came up when we've been prepping some professors that really, we want to make sure they understand the salon industry as well as possible. And Gary, I like to make a distinction between an entrepreneur and a small business owner. And I think there's overlap, but in many cases, someone's a small business owner, but they're not really entrepreneurial. I mean, it was just the next step for them. Do
Mhm.
you see a difference between being an entrepreneur and a small business owner?
Absolutely.
And what are you? What are you? Are you an entrepreneur?
Yeah, at this point now, finally, I mean, we were Paul Mitchell distributor for over 26 years. So I worked with a lot, from Stephen Way and 365 in Europe to New Day in upstate New York to Ultimate Salon Services here in Texas. And so, when you read my resume or my bio, whatever you call that thing, and I'm a sales guy, and I think the best leaders of companies are sales guys. And then you see the evolution of that company from, small business to entrepreneur. And it comes down to learning how to be a leader. In my career calling on hair salons, and it's over 35 years, I need to update my bio. That's the sad truth of that. I was like, holy God, I'm missing 10 years of my life here. So that being said, because, peace, love, and happiness is 22 years old. I mean, that's how old this bio is. But when you're looking at that progression, a lot of the entrepreneur or the small business owners come from, the salon has gone away. I don't like what's happened to it. I'm going to go out and open my business. And, they get plants and balloons and says, congratulations, good luck, you're a business owner. No, and if you take that lead person, that owner's salary and income out of the business, it's not a business. So as it starts out, it might be a great idea, but that owner is working twice as hard as everyone else is. And as the money, the entrepreneurship comes with, like, you're working with the Red Cohn School of Business. Red was a self-made man who started, with an energy company, donated almost $50 million to UT, and he owned the Spurs. So he went from a small business to an entrepreneur, because when you have the capital that you can risk without too much aversion, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to just throw this in, but how much can you afford to risk? At what sacrifice are you going to risk? And that's where the small business owner sits. How much more of our personal capital can I risk for this small business? Whereas an entrepreneur looks at it and goes, hey, Qnity, me and Tom sat down, and if I, just for example, Tom says, hey, this is what we're thinking. I give Tom 100 grand. Now I'm an entrepreneur buying into your business. I'm not sitting here having to run the day to day. So you see people like yourself or myself, or the John Pauls or the Red McCombs, who ideas come to them. That's when the entrepreneurship kicks in, because you've already established yourself as a business leader, someone with more than just, hey, I can cut good hair. I'm a critical thinker. I can look at something logically and say, well, a 40-chair poodle grooming, no, I'm not going to give you money for that. However, this Qnity, where it's teaching literacy of finance to salons, that's a good idea, and that's something that's needed. And I think an entrepreneur sees more logically than a small business owner, because if you just do the math and the stats scream it, then that's a high risk. Hair salons and restaurants, high risk. And yet, at an alarming rate, that seems to be the small businesses that we gravitate to. So I think you're absolutely right. I think you grow into entrepreneurship. You learn, you get your stripes in the trenches, you lose money, you get money, you have highs, you have super lows. But once you hit that entrepreneurship, you can absorb some of your loss. Because I've done some projects with John Paul where we lost money, and it didn't faze him, but my wife was pretty ticked off when I lost it. So,
What, what business are you in right now?
It's Ultimate Face Cosmetics. When we were a distributor, we started that 23 years ago, because we were only a Paul Mitchell distributor. And, there's that circle of service. So if you go get your hair, your make, and you go into the salon, you got to touch up and send out the door. We didn't want to carry any other lines, because I went down that road. Multi-line distribution is a beast. And if you don't have the capital like a BSG or Cosmoprof, you're always playing catch up. Our Albany business was 16 lines, and all of a sudden, a Sebastian or an Aveda or whoever, well, Aveda doesn't let you have multiple lines, but some of the brands we had, from Albert to Paul Mitchell to L'Oreal, they're like, we need more money from you. And there's only so much. And then it's like net 10, net 30. So if you get your Paul Mitchell truck, it's, 150 grand. You get your L'Oreal truck and you're a $5 million, you're like, where's my cash flow? So that's why when we came to Texas, we said one brand. John Paul's been a friend for years, still a 35-year friendship. He's one of the few men that I can actually has never lied to me in my whole relationship. He's always kept his word, always been an honest dude, and he's a good friend. So when I said, this is what we want to do, he said, great. That's why he and his wife are my partners in the makeup. It's, they came in and said, this is a brilliant idea. And then, that's, when Clayball was introduced to the Paul Mitchell family by my wife when she was working for Smokey Neal. It's a big circle we do here.
It is. You mentioned John Paul a couple times there. I think it's a fascinating story, actually, how you met him, if you would be okay sharing that.
This is, anyone who knows the story will laugh, but I was 22 years old. I was a doorman in Newport, Rhode Island. And, I was working, I had 3 jobs. I was a commercial scuba diver. I was selling shampoo, and I did some other stuff, a personal trainer. And John Paul at the time was just on the upswing. This is 35 years ago. And he was with someone who was in the ZZ Top video, Legs. And I recognized her right away. I was 22, and this girl, that's Wendy. She's the Legs girl. And I let him, professional courtesy, I let him cut the line. And we had a big line at this club. And when he cut the line, this person who had indulged in too much grown people's spirits. So he was drunk as a monkey. How's that? He just grabbed me and started shouting at me. And why does this guy cut? I've been here for 40 minutes, blah, blah, blah. We go to the ground, and I'm in good shape at this time. I'm 205 solid steel, because I was too poor to go out and party. All I did was work. And so his friend jumped on, a big dude. Now I'm in dire straits. John Paul got to the door, turned around, grabbed the friend, pulled him off my back and said, the man's doing his job. Next thing you know, that guy swings at JP, pop, pop, pop. And we laid waste to the village because we all have to remember John Paul rode with Hell's Angels. He wasn't a member, but he rode with them. And on more than one time in our career, we've had to, defend our honor, if you will. And John Paul is not a violent man, but I don't push him.
Yeah, that is just a classic story.
And that's how you become friends with John Paul, 35 years.
Um, Tell us about peace, love, and happiness. And
That was again,
yeah, so
you'll see a lot of the stories because John Paul's my neighbor. When we finally hooked up in Texas, we still spend a lot of time. I spoke to him this morning using on his airplane. But we had sport clips. Gordon Logan, one of the most brilliant men, most undervalued mind in our industry, and his son is just as smart. What he's done with chain business. But anyway, Gordon had just stopped with Command Performance and created sport clips. And we were going to talk to them. And on the way out there, we found out that a police officer was fired for saving a woman's life because he discharged his weapon. And the media mob gets behind whatever cause it is, whether it's pink elephants or hate the police or love the police. And this man lost his job, saved a woman's life. But because he discharged his weapon, and the person that, what had happened, this man was beating his wife or his girlfriend, I can't forget what it was. And he was just wailing, broken eye, the socket was smashed, collarbone, teeth missing, concussion. And when he went to jail, they let him right out. And when she got home, he beat her again. And they fired the officer. So John Paul and I looked at each other and said, we got to do more for the boys in blue and for our first responders. Because if you think about firemen, in certain parts of certain cities, the firemen, they raid the truck and they steal stuff off it or they throw things at them. So you got to take care of these people because they're our frontline defense against total chaos. That's all we have. And so we started the Peace, Love, and Happiness. And and this is just like being an entrepreneur. It's never going to work. No one's going to come. We've been sold out for life. For 22 years straight, I can't take anyone new. It's a hand-picked group, so that way there are no knuckleheads. Because when you open up something to the public, you get what comes. And we decided that, this is what we do. It's so much more, and it's your calling. What's your purpose? And for John Paul and I, it's always been, he has that mantra, success unshared is failure. And we took it one further, and purpose before profit. If you live your purpose, the profit will come. So what is your purpose? If everyone who's listening right now stopped and said, what is my purpose? And you might have multiple purposes, one inside your business, one inside your family. But my purpose is real simple, is to be the man I want my son to grow up to be. So anything I do, I have that in my mind. What would I want my son to do in this situation when he's a grown man? How would I want people to think of him? How would he be remembered? What would his legacy be? And at the end of the day, that's what we're all working for, is what is your legacy? How are you going to be remembered? Were you the guy with a Maserati, a Ferrari, and 10 homes and kicked puppies? Or were you the person who was there every time you were needed? And you did it because it was the right thing to do. And I think when you look inside your salon world, and we talked about walkouts and whatnot, the salon owner has to shoulder a lot of the burden of being the bigger person all the time. That's as simple as it is. And so I believe there's a special place for all our salon owners out there. So, I'll see you, and I'll be the doorman in heaven. I'll let you in.
I love it. Well, the other thing that, I started out by saying you're a bit of a colorful individual, and have done things that, not many of us would do. And here's another example. And by the way, I stay very, very far away from politics on this forum and just in life, period. And so we don't want to, yeah. So, but you ran for mayor of Austin. I mean, that's not something I get to meet someone very often that just says, okay, and you can go for all the reasons why, whatever, but you ran for mayor here, and that's putting yourself out there, man.
Yeah, it was, well, again, I had two people on my campaign, and I knew we had something special, John Paul and me. And John Paul's like, I'm not doing it, but I'll be your campaign manager. And we agreed from jump, we wouldn't take a nickel for the campaign. We wanted, because everyone talks about change. This is what we need. We the people, we the people. So when finally a we the people candidate who we said this was the best, because we were so pro beauty world, they said, well, what party? And we said the purple party. And I remember when I was on stage, I said, just what is the purple party? I said, if you know anything about hair color. And the whole room was, what? I said, hair color, red and blue make purple. That means red and blue, Republican, Democrat, mix them, it's purple. We're in the middle because we know 43% of the whole country is in the middle. And so the biggest voice, the biggest population has no voice. And politics, and you and I talked about it, but I don't like politicians. I don't like politics. But if this country is ever to reach its full potential of greatness, we have to get away from these two silos and have the middle speak. And then I knew we had something special because Megan Womack, who ran Bloomberg's campaign, moved to Austin. Megan pulled me aside at one of the debates and says, I'll do your campaign for free. And she's like, all right. So all of a sudden I get this powerhouse on one side who knows the ins and outs of the industry. And she goes, so let me understand this. You guys are not taking a nickel. Nope. By the end of my campaign, we donated $610,000.
Wow.
Which it proved to both the two top runners that I have the capacity to raise as much as you. And I've got this billionaire behind me that can smoke you. That's the, I don't like to brag about my muscle, but my muscle is pretty solid. And our network was pretty, people like a Red McCombs who, became a friend over these years. This is what these people want. And as you get older and wiser, you go through your phases of life, but there's more to life than just being the guy with the biggest pile of money. If you got the big pile of money like John Paul, but you give it away like him, that's nirvana. I mean, what's that saying? High tide raises all boats. And, if you want to be the richest guy sitting on a hill eating a steak by yourself, that's your business. But, if you really want to see what makes real good, successful people, and it has nothing to do with money, it's how happy they are in their existing life. Do they appreciate everything they have right now in this moment? Because there's a great country singer, and you and I talked about Ray Wiley Hubbard. And he's been a friend for years. And he's one of the best kept secrets, but everyone loves him from the Beatles to Willie. And he goes, the days I keep my gratitude higher than my expectations, I have good goddamn days. And that's as simple as life is, man.
That's a really great and profound statement. And I'm also looking at the clock, and I think it's kind of a great closing comment, Gary. I mean, I'm taking that one to heart. Every single day I keep a journal. It's a very brief journal. It's called a Qnity journal. It's gratitudes and accomplishments. And what I tell you when I have a bad day is when I'm not up to date in my journal.
Yep.
And I do think, and it's called Qnity because it's gratitudes and accomplishments. I think gratitudes are something you absolutely need to address each day, as well as keep inventory of your accomplishments. The progress principle suggests that making progress is what's most important to reaching something big. So that journaling activity is very important for me. And I know a lot of other people have their rituals, but I really like that concept about, make your gratitudes the largest. So Gary, you're a great guest.
It was
Thank
my
you.
pleasure. Thanks for having me, Tom. I look forward to the fill in my hometown.
Yeah, yes, for sure. So, yeah, great share. And, because I'm not in my normal domain, normally I would show you, well, I think what I will show you here. Let's just kind of come back to, I need to show you, okay. We will be sending you a $1 million light bulb. So you should be watching for this. And and we're going to see one of the dachshunds. Oh my gosh.
That's just for you. That's Sunday.
All right. Well, listen, he went there with the dogs, and I'm tempted to grab my dog here too, but because
I dare you, Tom. I dare you.
oh, for goodness
Show me
sake.
your weenie, Tom.
Sorry, this is going to happen. Okay. Here is Gracie. There's Gracie right there. Look at this. Look at these two macho guys with their little dachshund dog in their lap.
Sprinkles and Gracie.
All right. Listen, Gary, great to spend time with you today. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to everybody for listening in. And please give Gary a virtual round of applause. I see some applause is going. Give him a little shout out in the chat. For those of you that didn't see the visual element to this today, we're glad you listened through a lot of profound wisdom that really comes from a person who has, things weren't given to Gary. Gary was not given things. He worked for him all his life. I know that about him. He's a very hardworking guy, and his intentions are great. And I was thrilled to have you as a guest, Gary. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad we're friends now, Tom. It was a pleasure having dinner with you. That was a blast.
Awesome. All right, everybody, we will see you for an episode next week. And don't forget to sign up for the fill because the fill will fill. And and so we will see you all very soon. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of the week.